Today, I want to talk about the detriments of comparison, how it affects your career, your relationships, and self-image. What up, everybody? My name is Romany Malco. I am the founder of the PEP, the People's Empowerment Platform, and you are watching another episode of Advice from a Jackass. Today, I want to talk about comparison, because a lot of people ask me, what do you do to stay positive? And to be honest with you, there's a lot of things that I try to do to stay positive. These things can range from just keeping a really sincere and genuine, caring circle of friends and family, but it also involves like keeping my character in check and doing good things and honorable things even when no one is watching. Now, let me tell you what I don't do. I don't compare myself to anyone. I understand that sometimes people will compare themselves for extra motivation or to set goals. But you have to understand that comparison also comes with a lot of disadvantages. Believe it or not, you consciously or subconsciously end up harboring resentments through comparison. In this video, I'm going to share with you how comparing yourself to others not only leads to resentment, but 7 other detriments you may not have considered. Anyway, here are 8 detriments of comparing yourselves. Hopefully you find this useful. All right, taking the number 8 spot is low self-esteem. When you compare yourself with others, you don't just resent yourself and the guy next door, but you lose confidence in your self-worth. A 2014 study of Facebook users on social comparison, social media, and self-esteem revealed that after some users were exposed to social comparison, they had a poorer state of self-esteem and gave themselves lower evaluations. Delphine Blanc, a certified professional life coach and a hypnosis practitioner, went on to add that, like, as you compare yourself with others, you begin to feel smaller and smaller. She claimed that as this happens, we tend to change our perception of our job, our relationships, and our entire life. She said that we have a tendency to compare our negative personalities with other people's exceptional qualities, ignoring our own outstanding qualities in the process. And in the end, these things just make us feel not worthy. Know that low self-esteem comes from what psychologist Leon Festing calls upward social comparison in his social comparison theory of 1954. And what he was making the point of is that we tend to compare ourselves to people who are doing better than us. And that type of comparison leads to resentment. In an article published by Psychological Bulletin, it revealed that despite many disadvantages of upward social comparison, an increasing number of people go down this road compared to downward social comparison. Downward social comparison is when we liken ourselves to people who are in less admirable positions than us. In the dark side of social comparison, a study by Judith White and her colleagues, a team of psychologists, claim that downward social comparison positively affects us as we feel better about ourselves. I find that shit weird that you got to find someone that you're doing better than to feel good, but I will tell you, growing up, that seemed to be the more common thing, where people tended to make themselves feel better by looking down on others. How do I say it? It doesn't really mean that looking down on others doesn't necessarily require you to be doing better than they are. 2 different things. All right, moving on. Number 7. Another study, this time published by the American Psychological Association, revealed that downward social comparison also leads to fear and anxiety. This was done showing people cancer patients and comparing both their situations. And instead of relief, as you would expect, these people felt more afraid, developed even more anxiety. And it works both ways. When they saw cancer patients who were worse off than them, they developed fear and anxiety. And when they saw cancer patients who were doing better than them, they got depressed and became frustrated. Remember I mentioned the dark side of social comparison study with Judith White? Well, her and her team also found that low self-esteem could lead to neuroticism. Neuroticism is among the big 5 higher order personality traits. Neurotic people tend to respond in extreme ways to stressors. They're also more likely to interpret ordinary and non-threatening situations, such as like minor frustrations, as hopelessly difficult. Other symptoms include self-consciousness, shyness, trouble controlling urges, failure to delay gratification. By the way, if you're enjoying the content or if any of this is resonating with you, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. And if you really want to get ballsy with it, please follow me at Pep Request Lite. You can download it in the App Store or Google Play. Remember earlier I talked about resentment? Well, that is number 6. This is the joy deprivation Roosevelt was talking about. Karen Hall, a certified clinician and therapist, she further verified this by saying that you begin to feel this unnecessary hate towards yourself, and this limits your chances of experiencing happiness. Number 4 is a good one. When you compare yourself to others, you unknowingly give them the steering wheel to your life. Maybe you're a writer and you're comparing yourself to a writer that you aspire to be as good as. Consciously or subconsciously, that individual's style and voice will eventually begin to guide you as you write, pulling you further and further away from your authentic voice. But this also happens on social media. It could be your body image. It could be your current employment, state of revenue, just your overall lifestyle. Being an artist, I have learned that there is a difference between observation and comparison, and I think it's very important to distinguish the two. I see people achieving things at a pace and at a rate that is unfathomable to me. But at the same time, I don't look to myself and go, oh, I've got to now go and do that. I don't want to put that pressure on myself. I don't need that added stress. I also understand that where we are psychologically could be very different. Our upbringings could be very different. Our value systems could be very different. And what we're willing to sacrifice could also be very different. And one of the things that prevents me from comparing is I understand that my interpretation of a balanced life may be very different from someone else's interpretation of a balanced life. And that is actually a perfect segue into number 3, which explains how comparison stalls our progress in life. Brenda Rafflova, a self-development advocate and coach, says that if you spend your days comparing yourself to others, you'll never get anything accomplished. And she attributes this to wasting valuable time or sacrificing valuable time to tracking other people's goals and dreams. I got a question for you. What do you think? How has comparison impacted your life? Do you believe that social media plays a role in the way in which we interpret our own lives? Do you think it influences or enhances our desire to compare? Do you think it's beneficial or not? Do you believe that there's a balance? If you can answer any of those questions and put them in the comments, I'd be so grateful. I'm trying to make every single video of mine like a wealth of information and different perspectives. So if you can beef up those comments for a brother, it would be greatly appreciated. Taking the number 2 spot is how the habit of comparison has no end despite the magnitude of an accomplishment. So if you frequently compare yourself, even when you eventually manage to break free and become successful in life, you will still end up comparing yourself with others. It's almost as though comparison, the way I look at it is comparison is like you take a stake, you put it in the ground and you say, that's the finish line. And every time you start getting close to the finish line, you pull the stake out of the ground and move it a little further ahead. And you go, that's the finish line, and that's the finish line. The problem with that journey, in my personal opinion, is quite often it is steering you away from the journey that was intended for you. And that's one of the huge detriments of comparison that I failed to mention earlier. So let's just make that an additional one thrown into the mix. If you're enjoying this content, please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and if you really want to support, I beg of you to go to the App Store or Google Play and download Pep Pager Lite and follow Romany Malco. But yeah, the Judith White study that I was talking about, her and her team verified that social comparison teaches a person to make more and more comparisons as they go along. And that is, to me, like just constantly moving the goalposts. It's just not fair to myself. And often it's like a wild goose chase because ultimately I think that we're all pursuing happiness. And if we go on this wild goose chase, or if we're blindly chasing someone else's dreams and someone else's goals, it might not be suitable for us. We might not find it fulfilling in the end. And it might not be what most honors our needs and desires, or our family's needs and desires along with that. So anyway, moving along. I know I'm long-winded. I don't want to drag this out, but it's just important for you to understand that Judith White study revealed that, if you make a habit of frequent social comparisons and you allow that to lead you, you will eventually become dependent on making social comparisons. And the problem with that is that we're living in an information age and we have access to everyone's life, and everyone's posting up their best pic and posting up their best trip and posting up their best moments. And we can be seduced by that into believing that we're entitled to that, or believing that our partner should behave the way that this person's partner is behaving, or look the way this person's partner is behaving. And that can be toxic. Finally, at number 1, comparison can lead to an unhealthy dose of competitiveness, which can include like a Machiavellian worldview on someone. I got that from a community of therapists called Good Therapy. With this view, you're likely to take drastic actions to be like the people that you're comparing yourself to. If you really get sucked into it, you want to get better than them. The Good Therapy group was also saying that like a Machiavellian personality might lead you to threatening your rivals, stealing resources, telling lies, being really cutthroat to get ahead. The Dark Side of Social Comparison study that I was talking about earlier even went further to verify this claim, because it said that like they had these 2 studies that when they reviewed them, they would reveal that frequent social comparison also leads to like a range of destructive emotions and behaviors. So some of these are directed at the self, such as guilt. And some of these emotions are directed to others, such as lying and cheating. So to the people who say, Rom, how do you stay so positive? You don't know if I stay positive. You only see the version of me that I want you to see. You don't see me when I'm out of pocket. I don't necessarily want to advertise that or promote that. Or you don't see me when I say something insensitive to my better half, and it takes me a while to recognize that I owe her an apology. You don't see that aspect of me. And so, or when I develop negative outlooks on things, or like I show like bitterness in areas. And I'll be real. It's been a while. I've been pretty content and pretty cool. I mean, you start getting the hang of things as you get into your 50s. But the point that I'm really trying to make here is that however you perceive me, please understand you're getting, well, my channel kind of shares a little bit more than most channels do, but in most instances of social media and online, you don't really know what's going on with that person. You don't really know if what they're showing you is 100% their truth. And I would tell you the truth, 9 times out of 10, it's not. So I don't know if anyone in the world stays 100% positive. My friends have joked, people I've dated have joked and said, like, I think Rom's got just a little extra serotonin in his mix. And it's kind of true. I'm a little bit of a happy-go-lucky brother. I'm extremely grateful for that. But that is after leading a life of, like, I'd say the first 30 years of my life of kind of being miserable and quite uncomfortable in my skin. And then when I began to implement all these things that I was telling you about, the way that I eat, journaling, therapy, introspection, meditation, none of which I've done consistently all at the same time. I've gone through phases of each. You know, I go through phases of each. I'm like, now I'm in my meditation phase and my workout phase or whatever it is. But my point basically being is that there are a lot of different things you can do to stay positive, but to me, one of the most important things is to never compare yourself. Never compare yourself. It's okay to make observations, but never assume someone else's path, someone else's pace is somehow intended for you as well. That, to me, is career suicide. It will steal every bit of your happiness, and it will bring about an unnecessary stress. Again, if you are enjoying the content, I beg of you to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and please download Pep Pager Lite in your App Store or Google Play. My name is Romany Malco. I am the founder of the PEP, the People's Empowerment Platform, and this concludes another episode of Advice from a Jackass.